Hi, I'm Sally Rippin. I'm the author of the School of Monsters series.
And I'm Kennett, and I am the illustrator of the School of Monsters series.
And I'm Gisela Ervin-Ward, and I am the literacy advisor who helped develop the phonics cards for the School of Monsters.
So Gisela, this is the area that I always get a little bit confused about, and I know a lot of parents out there will be feeling the same. We hear this word all the time, phonics, phonics, phonics. We all know that schools are transitioning across to teaching children using new methods, and phonics seems to be the word that people throw around a lot. But what is phonics?
It's a very good question because you do hear the word phonics a lot.
So the word phonics itself, what does that actually refer to when you're hearing people talk about phonics?
So phonics is a part of learning to read. So specifically the part where children learn to associate a sound and a letter together and how they work together to make a word. It's the part of learning to read where you crack the code. So it's about the code of English.
Yeah. One of the things that I wrote a book for parents about supporting children who may struggle to learn to read in the classroom, and it required quite a lot of research. And the very first thing that I discovered that completely blew my mind is that we're not actually born with brains that are wired to learn to read. And this, I had no idea. You know, I'd been brought up thinking if you just read to your children enough, they'll just pick up reading by osmosis. But it's actually not the case, that it is actually something that needs to be explicitly taught. So Gisela, another term that I've heard a bit that I think could do with some clarification is this term science of reading. What is the science of reading?
So science of reading is it's a relatively new term. It's an umbrella term that covers the body of research that explains how the brain learns to read. And particularly based on what we're talking about, that it's not something your brain does naturally, you've got to be taught how to do it. And there's ways of teaching that are better than others, or more efficient than others. And so phonics is one part of that. But there's a lot more to it than that. Reading and writing is really a very complex neurological or cognitive process. And there's been a couple of theories that simplify it, that explain it quite clearly. And a lot of it starts on one called the simple view of reading, which by a guy from Kennett, it's been around a long time, and it says that to be a fluent, expert reader who understands what you read, which is the whole point of reading, you need to have good language comprehension and you need to have good word recognition, which means you've got to know your language, but then you've also got to be able to decode the words as well. That was a bit too simplified to use as an actual teacher to actually work out how to teach. And there's a very nice infographic, probably my favourite infographic of all time, called The Reading Rope by Scarborough. It's been around a while too, which shows how these two elements work together, combine together. And it's based on the analogy that a rope is made up of lots of different threads that all thread together to make a strong rope. And learning to read is made up of all these different strands. So you can see in that image that it's a picture of these separate strands, and they become increasingly automatic until you're not even thinking about it anymore, and that's when you become an expert reader. So when you understand that, then the question comes up, so how do we teach those things? And one of the another useful model that's used a lot now is the Big Six of reading, which says that in reading and writing lessons, you should focus on oral language, so just basically understanding how language works. Phonological awareness, again, hearing the different sounds in words. Phonics, which is the code. Vocabulary, so having a large number of different words, knowing how they work, how they interact with each other, how they can change. Comprehension, so so understanding what you're reading, and in that maybe some background knowledge as well. So you'll see in a classroom or in materials you get that they will address different aspects of that, if not all at the same time. Well, the nice thing is you can be a team. So you do need expert skills to teach someone how to read, and that's what a teacher does. Teachers, especially now as these new teaching processes are coming in, that's becoming even more solid. So the first thing as a parent, you communicate with your school. So if they are providing books to read or practice activities or that sort of thing, working on them at home is one of the big things. But there's plenty of things you can do around as well, especially if you have got absolute beginner readers or pre-readers before that kids even go to school. And one of my favourite things to be able to say is you get to be a parent first. So you get to do the fun stuff. It's one of the most important things you can do. Have lots of experiences, go out, do things, so your kids see how the world works and talk about it. Why did that happen? What do you think that person did that for? Look, this tree is growing now. What's it going to be like later on? So that discussing what you see, that's helping with your reasoning. That's helping with vocabulary, oral language, all that sort of thing. Then the next best thing is reading with your child. Now, your child won't learn to read just if you read to them, but it really helps with a lot of aspects of learning to read. You show that the books are valued, that stories are important. You're just having a nice fun time together, but you're also demonstrating to children what written language sounds like. So one of the things that really blew my mind was it hadn't ever occurred to me that written English is different to spoken English. So kids can watch TV shows or we can chat till the cows come home, but if you don't hear what a written sentence sounds like, you can't write it yourself, you can't reproduce it, and maybe you even have a bit of trouble understanding it if you're trying to read it. So reading books gives children exposure to that sort of written form.
And it's such an important way to connect with a child, isn't it? I know certainly when my children were little, it was often the one point in the day that they could have my undivided attention. That it's often, even when I was teaching writing for children to adults, they would remember books from their childhood with such a strong memory. So I think one of the challenges is to make sure that they're getting all the education that they need to become proficient readers, but also at home providing the joy of reading, showing them how much we can learn from books, how books develop empathy, how we understand stories and characters, and that's, you know, certainly a really important thing that parents can do at home. Like you said, it's fun.
Absolutely.
It's really good.
And especially if learning to read is stressful for your child, having that positive experience associated with books and reading and knowledge and stories is the insurance that's going to help them push through a bit if they've got to do something difficult.
I think modelling reading is really important as well. I know certainly for little boys to see their dads reading can be really influential. I think just like you say, valuing books in the home, so going to the library, going to book launches, seeing that books are part of everyday life and something to be really treasured is a really important thing that parents can do too. So we've worked on a little kit together. Before we go on to that, is there anything else that we should know as parents at home that is important for us to understand about the way that children are being taught to read now? Because it does feel a little bit new, a little bit confusing for some people.
So one of the things is that this science of reading and systematic synthetic phonics approaches are actually not new. They have been around for a very long time. The research has been settled for a long time. So this is not a fly-by-night type of thing. It's worth your effort investing in learning how this works and in helping your kids and supporting your school as they're implementing it. This is it's really important and it works.
Chris Kennett and I have been working on the School of Monsters series for a little while, which is for us a really fun series to introduce kids to the joy of reading and support their reading at home. What we did in the series was to make a really appealing world and introduce children to some of the words that they might come across as they're learning to read at school. But with you, Gisela, we've gone even further in that we've created a little kit to really go explicitly into what phonics is and some of the things that parents can do at home to support their kids in learning to read. Can you talk us through what we've got here?
Okay. So you'll see that on the book and cards here, it has the word phonics. And like we were talking about before, phonics is just one part of learning how to read. This, like the books, this is not a whole program, a whole learning to read program. This is just a nice, powerful little tool for parents to use at home with kids to reinforce one of the most important learning to read skills, and that is technically grapheme phoneme correspondence. Grapheme, graph being letter, phoneme, phone, sound being sound, because children need to be able to see a letter, know what sound it goes with, and they need to be able to do that automatically. So that's what these cards are to help with, and there is a book to back it up too.
So we can use the cards at home. There's also a little set of instructions for children and adults. And so one of the things that is really important for people to understand is that it's not a full teaching kit, but it's definitely something that parents can do at home with their kids. Hopefully it's fun, it's attractive, and it makes kids just really excited about learning.
Yeah, and it's designed that it should be able to complement whatever is happening at school. Yeah.
Bye from me.
And bye from me.
And bye from me.
And don't forget, the phonics kit is out now.